fan service. That was weird. Fan service? Okay. Let's try this one more time. Fan service. Okay, get out of here, guy. I don't know who you are, but this will not turn into debauchery. Anyway, now that that's over and done with, let's get into the video, shall we? For those of you who don't know, fan service is a material of work of fiction or in a fictional series that's intentionally there to please the audience. It's often sexual in nature and sometimes includes nudity. It originated, or rather the term did, in Japan, and we've seen it in media, whereas a lot of the things that we got kind of removed a lot of it when it came over to America. Fan service can appear in a lot of different ways. It can sometimes be intense, other times it seems forced. And that's what I'm here to discuss in this video, is basically what to expect with fan service and some of the things that they might not tell you. So let's talk about the different levels of fan service. We'll go from the heavier content to a bit lighter. First off, there's the Wild Wild West. There's ecchi and hentai, which are the extreme versions of fan service. So often these won't have much of a storyline to them. It's just your average run-of-the-mill porn at this point. The difference is pretty minuscule in that it's pretty much kind of about censorship and what's shown and what's not shown. But by all accounts, they're pretty much on the same level. Second part to be discussed is when the content is forced. Now, this can come in animes where there's really no need for fan service, where they're not necessarily leaning on the fan service like a Yuri on Ice might, but they still want to give a bit of fan service to the fans watching. How they normally do this is maybe they'll use their commercials or certain drawing styles to give the people a little bit of what they want. Or it can come in the form of different scenes where it adds nothing to the actual narrative, where it's just fan service to fan service. Maybe you were already watching and now it just seems to make you a bit uncomfortable. It can feel a little bit different when you're watching something and you necessarily weren't expecting to see certain scenes. There was a huge controversy regarding a scene in the first episode of Goblin Slayer. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the scene. If you want to look it up, you can. But what I will say is that it's a jarring scene amidst a lot of jarring things, and its appearance kind of seems out of place. Now, it's been argued that, well, Goblin Slayer is a dark series and there shouldn't be any problem with that. But I can tend to say that the issue more so lies in the presentation. There are many ways to kind of show darkness or to exude a dark tonal thing in anime. And I think most people's negative feelings towards it just come from maybe not necessarily being prepared or feeling that the scene was necessary to show how dark the goblins could be. Now we get to the series to where it's just kind of heavy, where you're going to see a lot of fan service, but it's not necessarily ecchi, it's not necessarily hentai, but you can tell that a lot of it is pandering completely towards probably a male-driven audience. But the heavier content can end up in a place where maybe there's a fight and clothes always seem to just by happenstance end up at just the level that they're only not showing nipple or something like that. Or, maybe there's a scene where you're eating some food and you eat it and all of a sudden it's a bit orgasmic.
ま、食ってみりゃわかるよ。田所も。ほれ。
That would lean more towards the heavier side of fan service, where they're pretty much laying it on thick and there's no real difference between that and the ecchi or the hentai things. At least that's how I can feel. Medium would be something like Eyes Wallenstein from Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in the Dungeon, where her armor is not necessarily revealing or leading to anything that would be, problematic, but the general design of her clothes is something that leans a little bit more towards fan service. Whether it's seeing a bit of her thigh, the shortness of her outfit, or the way in which her armor is shaped. there's certain things about it that leans in a medium light to where maybe it's not as readily apparent. Last but not least in this is light fan service. And light fan service can come to you in the form of Comey Can't Communicate, where all of Comey's design is kind of leaning a bit lightly towards fan service, but not so overtly that it's going to turn you away from the show. What I mean is that if you look at her character model, you can see that while she's very tall, her skirt is very short, and the only thing that doesn't make it as noticeable is her long stockings. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be the case when she probably could have just a bit longer skirt given her size and given that that might be something that would happen in real life. But again, it's not going to come off forceful in any way, and technically there's nothing really wrong with it. So, what's not really explained about fan service? Well, what's not explained is how it can sometimes make you feel. Maybe it triggers different things for you. Maybe it takes you out of the enjoyment of the moment. It's not really explained in a way that can kind of prepare you. It's not often presented in a way that kind of gives nuance to the different uses of it. So sometimes, i.e. the Goblin Slayer scene, you can be a bit disgusted amidst a lot of things that are kind of going on, whereas in other mediums, it's just a gag or a joke. You're not really openly preparing for all of the things that can kind of happen or how this can make you feel. The bigger reason I think that a lot of people end up not really being prepared for it is animated. So some of us may look at it as a cartoon and not really expect such raunchy or X-rated content right there on the screen. I mean, not everybody watches South Park.
Oh my God! They killed Kenny! You bastard!
So, with that in mind, I wanted to give a small bit of understanding to the different levels that you can expect when you're watching anime or reading manga. I hope it helps in a way of giving you something that maybe you wouldn't have tried otherwise. Maybe you'll stay for the good content, or maybe you'll know that this just isn't for you. Some people will just present it as boys will be boys or girls will be girls, or it's a cultural thing. But that doesn't necessarily give you much leeway there in terms of what you're watching. The biggest issue with Goblin Slayer was Crunchyroll's presentation of it. There wasn't much of an indicator of what was going to be there for those who don't happen to read the manga. And that's kind of where it went wrong. But all in all, the presentation of these things can be jarring sometimes, and that's okay. A lot of us anime fans don't really talk about this. We kind of just leave you to your own devices or hope you'll throw fan service in the trash and just keep watching this great show that we enjoy. On the other hand, why not try to give some perspective to what it is you're going to be going into so you can be better prepared when you're watching and find more enjoyment out of this? I mean, the goal is to grow the community, not get us shunned and put back into a corner, especially when the popularity of anime is rising continuously day by day, as seen by all the live adaptations that are coming out on top of the licensing rights that Crunchyroll, Funimation, Netflix seem to be fighting over. All in all, fan service isn't a bad thing. It's just how it's presented to you. And sometimes we don't present it in a way that we should or give you enough warning when inviting you into this world. I hope this gives a little bit more leeway to when you walk in on somebody watching anime and you're thinking like, what are you watching, dude? And maybe you'll pause for a second and hopefully it'll get back to the plot. Anyway, I hope that helped a bit, and I'll see you guys next time. So, if you enjoyed this content, consider hitting the subscribe button and hit that bell icon so that way you can be notified for each time that I go live. We want to grow the community of anime over here at Gray Area Anime, and we'd be happy to have you. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.
Ah!